My sister is my mom's golden child. It's undeniable. And when I stand up for myself, my mom just pushes me away, like I'm invisible. But Emma? My perfect sister? She runs off with mom's money, leaving her heartbroken. Can you even imagine? This has been my life for as long as I can remember. I'm 23, a female, living with my 52-year-old mom and 26-year-old older sister, Emma, in our family home. And this has been the setup ever since my dad passed away 5 years ago. Emma has always been mom's favorite. And it's not just in my head, it's obvious to anyone who spends more than 5 minutes with us. Growing up, Emma got the newest clothes, the latest gadgets, and all the attention. Mom would go to every single one of Emma's school events, but when it came to mine, there was always some excuse. I'm too tired. I have to work late. And it stung. But, over time, I got used to it. It became the norm. As we got older, nothing changed. Emma went off to a prestigious university to study law, while I stuck to a local community college to pursue an associate's degree in graphic design. And Mom? She couldn't stop bragging about Emma to anyone who would listen. My Emma's going to be a big-shot lawyer one day, she'd say, proud as punch. Meanwhile, my choice of career was met with indifference, if not outright disappointment. But you know what? The real issue wasn't just the favoritism. It was the responsibility imbalance at home. Since Emma was busy with her studies, guess who was expected to do everything? Yep. Me. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Every morning, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to get the day going. I'd make breakfast for everyone. Mom liked her eggs sunny side up with toast, no crust. Emma? She wanted a veggie omelet with a side of fruit. And me? I'd grab a granola bar on the go, barely getting a chance to sit down. After breakfast? The cleanup. Dishes. Laundry. Vacuuming. Dusting. You name it, I did it. And then I'd rush off to my part-time job at a local coffee shop, working to save up for my own place and to contribute to the bills, even though Mom never asked Emma to chip in. After work, I'd get home, and guess what? More chores. Mopping. Scrubbing. Grocery shopping. Meal planning. You'd think I was the only one living here. Dinner? That was an entire production. I'd slave over the stove, making elaborate meals while Emma sprawled out on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Mom? She'd chat with Emma, asking about her day, her studies, her future plans. And me? I'd be lucky to get a word in edgewise. Then came the cleanup. Again. If I ever dared to complain or ask for help, Mom would give me this disappointed look and say something like, "Your sister needs to focus on her studies. She's going to take care of us all one day. The least you can do is help around the house." It was exhausting, physically and emotionally. I felt like a maid in my own home, running around while Emma enjoyed herself. The worst part? Mom didn't even seem to notice. It was always about Emma. 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 One day, it all exploded. It was a Saturday, and I had planned to meet up with friends for a group project for our design class. I had been looking forward to it all week, not just for the project, but for a chance to get out of the house and actually have some social interaction that didn't involve coffee or chores. So, I woke up early, like usual, just to get the chores out of the way. But as I was making breakfast, Mom walked into the kitchen. "Oh, good, you're up," she said. "I need you to deep clean the living room today. The carpet needs shampooing, and the curtains need to come down to be washed." My heart sank. "Really?" "But Mom," I protested, "I have plans today. I told you about my group project." Mom frowned. "Can't you reschedule? We're having guests over next week, and I want the house to look perfect." I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. "I can't reschedule. We've been planning this for weeks. Maybe Emma could help with the cleaning? And then, just like clockwork, Emma walked into the kitchen, still in her pajamas. Even though it was nearly 10 a.m. morning, she yawned, grabbing a muffin. Mom's face softened as she turned to Emma. "Good morning, sweetie. Did you sleep well? Don't forget you have that online study group later." Emma mumbled with a mouthful of muffin, and Mom turned back to me, her expression hardening once more. "Your sister has important studying to do. You know how crucial her education is." And that's when it snapped. All the frustration, the anger, the hurt that had been building up for years, all of it came flooding out. "What about my education?" I demanded, my voice rising. "What about my plans? My life? Don't they matter at all?" Mom looked taken aback. "Of course they matter, but I wasn't done." "No, they don't," I cut her off. "Not as much as Emma's. Never as much as Emma's." Emma, who had been silently watching, finally spoke up. "Hey, don't drag me into this. It's not my fault Mom asks you to do the chores." I was furious. "No, it's not your fault. But you've never once offered to help. You just sit back and let it happen." Mom tried to intervene. "Let's all calm down, there's no need to." But I was on a roll now. Years of pent-up resentment were spilling out. "No, Mom. I'm done calming down. I'm done being the maid. I'm done being treated like I'm less important than Emma. I'm done with the favoritism, the unfair expectations, all of it." I turned to Emma. "You want to know why Mom never asked you to do chores? It's because she thinks you're going to be this big success and take care of her one day. That's a lot of pressure, isn't it? But hey, at least you get to relax while I do all the work." Emma's face flushed. "That's not fair. I work hard at my studies." I shot back. "I work part-time, study, and do all the housework. When do I get to focus on my future?" Mom, trying to salvage something, said, "Sweetheart, you know we appreciate everything you do. It's just that Emma's career path is more, well, it's going to be more financially rewarding in the long run." Those words hit me like a slap to the face. So, that's it? My worth to this family is measured by how much money I might make. I was done. You know what? I'm done. I'm not cleaning the living room today. I'm going to meet my friends and work on my project. And when I get back, we're having a serious conversation about how things run in this house. Or I'm moving out. With that, I grabbed my bag and stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind me. Mom and Emma stood there, frozen, staring at me in shock. As I walked out, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger. Hurt. But, oddly, relief. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself. The rest of the day? A blur. I met up with my friends, throwing myself into the project, trying to forget the confrontation. But by the time the day was over, doubt started creeping in. Had I overreacted? Was I being selfish? When I returned home late that night, exhausted but determined, I knew one thing for sure: we were going to have that conversation. And it was going to change everything. I had promised myself, but as soon as I walked through the door, the atmosphere hit me like a freight train. Tension was thick in the air. Mom and Emma were in the living room, sitting side by side, yet it felt like there was an invisible wall between us. They didn't even glance in my direction as I stepped in. "Hey," I said hesitantly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" Silence. The only sound was the low hum of the TV, though neither of them was really watching it. I took a deep breath. No more hesitation. It was time to address this. "Look, I know this morning was intense," I started, my heart racing. "But we need to talk about this. All I'm asking for is a little help from Emma with the household chores. It would make me feel like we're being treated equally." Finally, Mom turned to face me. Her expression was like ice, cold and unfeeling. I think you've said quite enough already, she replied, her voice clipped, dismissive. Before I could respond, Emma chimed in, her tone dripping with disdain. Yeah, we heard you loud and clear this morning. You're jealous of me and my potential future. How selfish can you be? I swear, it felt like she had slapped me across the face. Selfish? I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. How is asking for help selfish? Mom shook her head, her eyes narrowing. You're disrupting the peace in this house. Emma needs to focus on her studies. You're just jealous because you know your little hobby won't amount to much. Hobby? The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Graphic design is a real career, Mom. If you'd ever bothered to learn about it. Enough. Mom cut me off, her voice sharp, final. I won't have you disrespecting us like this in our own home. I stood there, frozen. The words stung more than I cared to admit. I had hoped, just maybe, that they would reflect on what I said and realize how unfair they had been. But no. They doubled down. Our own home, I repeated, my voice barely a whisper, more to myself than to them. Right. Well, I guess it's not my home anymore. Without another word, I turned and walked to my room, grabbing a backpack and shoving in clothes and essentials. My laptop. I wasn't staying. As I walked back out, Mom and Emma still hadn't acknowledged me. I'll be at Sarah's, I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was in turmoil. I'll come back for the rest of my stuff later. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I knew I needed space to breathe, to think, to plan my next move. At least at Sarah's, I wouldn't be treated like a maid or made to feel worthless. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear, I deserved better than this. And maybe, just maybe, it was time I started believing it. Update: it's been about 3 months since I moved out, and honestly, I can't believe the difference it's made. I've been staying with my friend Sarah, splitting rent and chores equally. It's been liberating. No more carrying the weight of all the household responsibilities. It's like a fog has lifted. Without the constant drain of that, I've been able to focus on my studies and my graphic design career. It feels like everything is falling into place. I've completed several freelance projects, built up my portfolio, and even landed an internship at a local marketing firm. It's amazing what you can achieve when you're not exhausted from being everyone else's maid. But of course, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? Last week, I ran into our neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, at the grocery store. She asked how I was doing and then, with a concerned look, asked about Mom. Apparently, she'd noticed Mom struggling with yard work and looking overwhelmed lately. I offered to help, but Mrs. Johnson said Mom insisted she was fine. Then came the bombshell. How's Emma doing with her studies? Mrs. Johnson asked, lowering her voice. I hope that situation with Professor Andrews hasn't affected her too much. My mind reeled. Professor Andrews? I must have looked confused, because Mrs. Johnson's eyes widened. Oh dear, she said, almost apologetically. I thought you knew. Emma's been seen around town with him a lot. There's been talk. I left the store in a daze. Emma, my perfect sister, fooling around with a professor? And it was serious enough for the whole neighborhood to gossip about it? Part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. The golden child wasn't so golden after all. But mostly, I felt sad. Sad for Mom, who was struggling alone. Sad for Emma, who was throwing away her future for a fling with a professor. And sad for our family, which seemed to be crumbling without me there to hold it all together. I didn't know what to do with this new information. Part of me wanted to reach out and try to mend fences, but another part of me remembered the years of being treated as less than, and wondered if it was even worth it. For now, though, I'm focusing on my own growth and healing. I'm learning to value myself and my career and building a life where I'm respected. Maybe one day, Mom and Emma will realize what they've lost. Or maybe they won't. But one thing I know for sure, I'm better off now, standing on my own 2 feet, than I ever was trying to earn their approval. Update: life really does come full circle, doesn't it? 6 months later, just when I thought I had everything figured out, the universe decided to throw another curveball my way. It was a quiet Sunday evening, and I was working on a freelance project when my phone rang. It was Mom. I hesitated before answering. We hadn't spoken much since I left. When I picked up, her sobs hit me like a freight train. "Mom?" I asked, my heart racing. "What's wrong?" Through her tears, she managed to choke out, "Emma's gone. She ran away with some boy from her university, and she took most of my savings." The words hit me like cold water. Despite everything, Emma was still my sister. And hearing that she had done something so reckless and hurtful was shocking. "I'm coming over," I said, already grabbing my keys. When I arrived at the house, the sight nearly broke my heart. The place was a mess, nothing like the immaculate home Mom had always kept. And Mom, she looked like she'd aged years in just a few months. As soon as she saw me, she broke down again. I held her, feeling a mix of emotions I couldn't quite sort out. When she finally calmed down, she looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I've been such a fool," she whispered, her voice full of regret. "These past few months have opened my eyes. I was so wrong about so many things. About Emma, about you." She took my hands in hers, her grip tight. "You were always the responsible one. The one I could count on. And instead of appreciating you, I took you for granted. I'm so sorry, sweetheart." I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes. This was the acknowledgement I'd always wanted, but never thought I'd get. "I know I don't deserve it," she continued, her voice breaking. "But I need you. Would you consider coming back home? I promise, things will be different." Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect myself from being hurt again. But looking at Mom, vulnerable and genuinely remorseful, I knew I couldn't turn my back on her. "Okay, Mom," I said softly. "I'll come back. But things really do need to be different this time." Her face lit up with relief. "They will be. I promise." And so here I am, back in my childhood home. It's strange, a little uncomfortable, but also oddly comforting. Mom and I are learning to communicate better, to appreciate each other. She's even taken a genuine interest in my graphic design work, asking me to teach her some basics. We're working together to clean up the house and sort out the financial mess Emma left behind. It's not easy, but we're managing. As for Emma, we haven't heard from her. I hope she's safe, but I can't help feeling angry at her for what she's done. I'm continuing my freelance work, my internship, and Mom is respecting my time and space. It's a delicate balance, but we're figuring it out, day by day. I don't know what the future holds. Part of me is still wary, still protecting my heart. But another part of me feels hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, this is the fresh start our family needed. It's not the happily ever after I once imagined, but it's real. And for now, that's enough.